Hello and welcome back to yet another production we have here, the 2022 Senate election map. But this is going to be a scenario where the Senate election happens this month, August of 2021. So this is going to be different from a lot of other people's prediction videos, and it's going to be something that is going to, this is very simply an interesting topic, and I say this because we frankly know that a lot of seats are not going to be contested, but we do know that there's going to be a lot of seats that are going to be contested, and ultimately who controls the Senate is very vital to who controls the planet, and by that I mean what agenda gets pushed by the president going forward. So we're going to fill in these states that I believe are going to be 90%, I'm like 95% confident these will go the way that I'm predicting them right now. Obviously, we are also going to include Hawaii, and we're also going to include Alaska for the Republicans, just that there's a primary there that will make it interesting. So the floor for the Democrats in this case would be 45 seats, of course, and the floor for the Republicans, in my honest opinion, would be that we'd obviously win Indiana, that we're obviously going to win Iowa. We're easily going to win Ohio, right? And I think we're also going to win North Carolina, of course, because we already won it in 2016 and 20 in regards to the federal election, and if we have the Trump support as well as whatever moderates can come over because of the red wave and the turnout disparity, it's going to be very easily Republican. In fact, I could say with certainty that it can go likely or even lean Republican. So as of right now, with the whole Afghanistan debacle, I can see North Carolina going 5.5 points Republican, with Ted Budd getting all the conservative support and the turnout differential making all the difference. Okay, so right now, Joe Biden is an unpopular president. In 2020, we experienced a D+4, as in the Democrats won the popular vote in the general election by 4% more or less. Of course, that's with a wink. That's a caveat. We know what happened. But anyways, so if that's a D+4 and we tied in the Senate more or less, what does that tell us about 2022? And more importantly, if the election were today, we know that Biden has gone down by about 9 points in the aggregate in the last couple months, and that's mainly due to the Afghanistan thing. So because of that, most of the people that would have competitive races are just going to swim through. So for example, North Carolina could typically be seen as a 3-point Republican win, but because of Afghanistan, it could easily be over 5. If we move on to another state such as Colorado, you could see support crater for the Democrats, in which case we could see a likely Colorado easily. And we could also see that the lack of turnout there would really cost them dearly. And we move on to another state such as New Hampshire. New Hampshire, I have a feeling that Sununu will run, number one, and then number two, not only has he been pulling ahead of his opponents in the on the Democratic aisle before Afghanistan and the dip in polls for Biden, but he's also going to do better afterwards. So obviously, he's going to win this by even a likely margin. I'm pretty confident that he could if the election were done this month, obviously, with the whole debacle overseas. Now we move on to another point. And again, remember, Joe Biden has gotten nothing done legislatively other than the COVID stimulus, which Trump was going to pass in some capacity had he been president at the time. So ultimately, the big accomplishment would be the infrastructure bill, which hasn't even been done yet. So in that case, they have nothing to run on, basically, other than, oh, Trump sucks, but then they can easily say, well, Joe Biden sucks. I mean, just look at his approval rating, just look at objectively, he's senile. So again, their backs are going to be against the wall. The Democrats are going to be very screwed in this case. And again, I'm not taking voter shenanigans into account in this prediction because there's no way to tell how much there would be. So again, the red wave and the whole debacle would carry anybody who's running in Iowa and or Ohio over the line. I would also predict that Wisconsin would be a likely R state. If Ron Johnson is the nominee, I suppose, that would be very easy for him to win. Again, I'm pretty sure he won 2016 by over 3 points, so he outperformed Trump in 2016 by 2 to 3 points. If that's the case, then I could easily see the fact that in a D+4, Trump lost Wisconsin by 1. Okay, so if that's the case, if you were to offset those numbers by the red wave, you could say the generic ballot or the Republican advantage in 2021 right now would be R+8 or something along those lines. So if that's the case, then if anything, Ron Johnson should be at approximately 11% or 13% of a win. But I'm not even going to be that bullish. I'm just going to give him a likely. Okay, I'm going to give him a 8-point win, 7-point win, whatever. Okay, Now we move on to another state such as Florida. And assuming we have Marco Rubio as the nominee against maybe Val Demings or whoever the Democrats choose to lose to him, we will see Marco win by a safe margin, in my opinion. And we can also see Georgia going the way of Herschel Walker, who's officially running. And I assume that he's going to outperform the polls even. And because of that, he's already, I think, like before this whole like Biden debacle, I could see him win over Warnock by 2 to 3%. But because of this special occasion in August with the Afghanistan thing, I think he could win by I would probably say a likely margin actually. I'd say that we could see Georgia being R+5 if we assume that the environment is going to be like an R+8 because of this whole Afghanistan thing, and also assume that there's no voter F word. And if Georgia was won by only 2% against Kelly Loeffler, and we have a guy who's automatically 2 to 4 points better in polls against Kelly Loeffler and Herschel Walker, namely, then we can add the 4 points ahead of Loeffler, and then you're at a +2 over Warnock, plus the circumstances being ideal for a Republican, you could see a likely margin for Georgia. We could also see a likely margin for the state of Pennsylvania, and that's namely because I see it as a state where, again, in a D+4, Biden only won Pennsylvania by less than 2. And you keep in mind that if the nominee for the Republicans, let's assume, is going to be Sean Parnell, who I think either performed the same as Trump against Conor Lamb in the congressional district race in 2020 or outperformed him by 1 or 2 points, it's going to be extremely easy for him to win a likely margin against John Fetterman, who is a more or less a socialist. So yes, he could win by upwards of 5. Now, again, if it's a more moderate Democrat, then maybe it'll be a lean margin, but for now, that's going to be that. If we move on to the next state, we're going to be talking about Nevada. Nevada is going to be a pretty competitive state, albeit a state that might be leaning Democrat, assuming Biden recovers in the polls, which he probably won't. So I think that Joe Biden is going to hamper down whoever's running in Nevada as a Democrat, which in this case would be Catherine Cortez Masto. And if you were to look at her performance, it's not extraordinarily good for Nevada. And if you take into account Adam Laxalt only lost by a reasonable amount in 2018 in a D-Wave, you could assume that he's performing at the very least at a generic Republican level. And in an R+8 in a state that only went blue by 2-ish points in 2020, we could say that Adam Laxalt could beat Catherine Cortez Masto by a lean margin in the state of Nevada. Okay, if we move on to the state of Arizona with Mark Kelly running against, let's say, Blake Masters, just give him the nomination, assuming he gets the Trump support this month in August of 2021, who would win? I would probably say that Blake Masters would beat Mark Kelly by a lean margin as well. I think that Mark Kelly could avoid some of the attacks that you would be able to hit other Democrats because he has the facade of being a moderate, and maybe he can distance himself from Joe Biden a little bit. But ultimately, that R+8 is really going to kill him. So in that case, you could see Mark Kelly putting up a pretty good fight, but still losing to Masters by 3 in the state of Arizona. And I think that's completely reasonable for a lean margin to come out. Okay, so here you have it, 54 Senate seats. So we're flipping New Hampshire. We are flipping the state of Georgia. We are flipping the state of Arizona and Nevada in this case. So yes, it's looking pretty good for the Republicans right now. Of course, I don't see 2022 as good as this because this is specifically a very bad time for Joe Biden and the Democrats. You include the bad economy, the lackluster performance on the corona, at least polls say so, and again, the economy, the inflation, the corona, the border, the crime, and the Afghanistan weakness. So it's looking pretty rough for Democrats. Yes, 54 seats to 46. What do you guys think? Mitch McConnell would be very happy if this were to happen. Again, this is if the election were this month, okay? Not necessarily, oh, this is the election in 2022. No, this is the 2021 election, but with the 22 races, if you know what I mean. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching, and comment down below your thoughts on this video.